All right, and welcome to another awesome episode of Detections. Ow! I'm your host, BSD Bandit, along with
Understudy 77. Actually, no, you know what? I'm going to be excited tonight because it's been a while since I've been here. So with your host, Understudy 77.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right?
Woo!
It has been a minute since I've been on an episode, and I'm very excited about tonight's episode in general.
And tell us why.
Well, we'll get there. It's too soon. Too soon. We'll get there in a minute. I think this one's going to have that. I will tease it and say that this one's going to have that great potential to be really cool and fresh information while simultaneously pissing off a bunch of people. And those are like the best episodes ever.
They sure are.
They're my favorite. So, I mean, not a lot new, right? Like it's been like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But I mean, you guys had a good guest on. You talked DevSecOps, like you had a good kind of bringing in the new year episode because we probably won't do one like over Christmas, I would wager.
I know. Don't make me sad already.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, you know, it's Christmas, man. Like, you got to do that stuff. So anyway, screw it. I'm not even going to bother going into the long stuff. It's almost the end of the year. It's time to enjoy and celebrate and hopefully let away some of the stresses of 2021.
Yes.
So with that, tonight, we are going to talk specifically about a really interesting topic and kind of a new topic to the field of InfoSec, but not a new topic to like the world as a whole. So I'll be really interested to know how we try to reinvent the wheel over and over again, because that's kind of what we do here. And that topic is behavioral engineering with our guests, Allie Hansen and Masha. A little bit of background on this. I work with Masha, and we've been through this whole song and dance before. Like, I do have people that I work with on because I work with really smart people, and I like having them on. And Allie, Allie and I go way the hell back. Like, Allie is fantastic. Just wonderful, wonderful person. And I'm really excited to talk to both of them about behavioral engineering because I think it's going to be great. Also, Masha, I totally can't pronounce your last name. So you're going to have, I don't want to fuck it up. So like, you're going to have to do that. So why don't you start and say hi and tell people about yourself?
Hey, my name is Masha marbisman. I, as Sean mentioned, work with Sean and am thoroughly privileged to be on a team called Behavioral Engineering, which is kind of the new age of how to get employees to do the things you want them to when it comes to cybersecurity. And it's a hoot.
You want to give us a little, well, Allie, go ahead and introduce yourself quick too.
All right. Thank you so much for having me on. It's so good to see you guys. And I guess sort of my background is in lots of different things, business, marketing, and I had a little stint over at a very interesting little company doing some interesting things. And now I'm working on a few different things, but one of those is behavior. So very excited to talk about this tonight.
Yeah, this is going to be fantastic.
I'm super amped to hear about it. And again, for me, this is more so going to be a learning experience. So teach me. I'm a noob. So I'm definitely excited to hear this tonight. Definitely.
Masha, for the folks at home, do you want to talk a little bit about your background?
Sure. I was fortunate enough to get a bachelor's degree from UC Davis in quantitative psychology, which is basically how to get people to do what you want and how to measure it. So much so that my software engineer parents, when they got my degree in the mail, said that my bullshit had arrived because it was definitely bullshit that was going to get me through because they both wanted me to be in tech. Joke's on me, I guess, because I ended up in tech anyways and not as the psychologist that I wanted to be. I did a lot of marketing in the beginning of my career and then found cybersecurity and never want to leave.
But see, this is the cool thing about it, though, because like both of you coming in from different backgrounds get to bring very unique experiences, specifically not even necessarily as highly technical people. But honestly, what this industry, I think, needs a lot is not necessarily a bunch more highly technical people. Facts. But a bunch of people who know other stuff and can think about these other things. Because when we get to the core of kind of tonight's conversation, right, the user is always our biggest threat. And for years and years, we've been going through this concept of, security awareness. Tell users what's going on. Security awareness is everything. Everything's about security awareness. And we're usually, if I start laughing, I apologize. We usually don't do video. We have video kind of in the back right now, and like people are making hilarious faces right now. So sorry for everybody who doesn't get to see that. But Security awareness, I think in a lot of ways is like a tired trope and is hackers. And I am absolutely, Allie and Masha, technical or not, putting you in the category of hackers in the purest sense of the word. Just like I do anybody really who's interested. Why behavioral engineering? Why not security awareness? What doesn't work there? I feel like that's a good place to start. Who wants to go first? Go ahead, Masha.
It's like my biggest pet peeve in the whole entire world when it comes to my career. We're human hackers, and I think that's the best way to look at it, because we're literally hacking into what drives people to do the things that they do and try and assist them in that journey to figure out what's best for them. The reason that security awareness doesn't work, and if my boss hears this podcast, he's going to grill me for this, because this was his kind of nuanced finding that he loves to put in every single one of his slide decks. Do you guys remember G.I. Joe, the action figure and the cartoon from the
Yes,
of course.
BSD probably more than anybody.
So G.I. Joe ended every single episode with a PSA that said, "Now you know, and knowing is half the battle." And a lot of the time that was said around things that kids should learn, like not to run out in the street or not to run with scissors and that kind of thing. And so to say that awareness is half the battle literally breaks my soul in the work that I do. Right? If you think back to it, it's the example is like I want to lose weight, or I want to gain weight, but I want to lose weight. So I go to the doctor, and the doctor says, "Hey, you're 20 pounds overweight, right? You need to lose 20 pounds to be healthy." I've decided, yes, I need to lose 20 pounds to be healthy. If knowing is half the battle, then I just lost 10 pounds by knowing that I need to lose 20.
I like that.
That's a really good analogy.
Yeah, seriously,
that's not the way it works at all.
Would you like to give a shout out to your boss by name, specifically because I'm naming the episode "Knowing is not half the battle"? So
thank you, Josh Schwartz. You have changed our lives for the better, and thank you for the concept. When I look back to my psych degree and what I learned in psych, and we went through the 5 stages of behavior change and kind of what those entail. And if you think about it from the scientific standpoint, right, you have pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. The knowing portion comes in at the second stage and ends before half of the second stage is done. So like if I were to put math on it, if the whole journey is 100%, then knowing can't be more than like 15. Definitely not 50.
I like math. That's fantastic. I mean, Allie, do you want to weigh in on this as we continue to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm violently nodding my head, so I should probably vocalize the fervent agreement that I have with Masha and what everything that you guys are saying. Absolutely, I was literally on a soapbox earlier this afternoon with my business partner, talking about how, it's so frustrating as an observer of this relatively new industry. So what I have been observing is that, it's made up of amazing, mostly technical people who don't have the knowledge, background, skills, or experience in things like psychology, and things that have to do with more of the social arts. And that's just kind of how it's been. And that's great. So now we are finding ourselves at like a state where the problems we have to face are well beyond all of the knowledge and experience that we have traditionally have with technology. So we are so far up a creek that we are not really used to even, being in this type of situation to handle these types of problems. And that's why I think, going back to what we talked about earlier, it's so important to bring in some outsiders who have been there in different scenarios and apply those to what we're going through now. And it's frustrating for me as an observer of this industry, because it seems as though we kind of just latch on to whatever the first thing that sounds somewhat scientifically credible is, and someone who seems like they're really smart and they know more than we do about this kind of stuff.
And then we just keep beating our head off of it over and over and over and over again.
Exactly. And it's like, it's frustrating, and it's it's sad, because I think people with backgrounds like Masha, who have traditional, real formal training and education on this stuff, see some of the things that are being said and some of the services and products that are being put out there today. And we're actually like silently screaming like, no, that's not really the whole answer. And security awareness is a huge example of where this poor industry did not know and just literally sunk their claws into something and got way too far into it. And we are just now coming around to questioning, was that really the answer? Because we're still seeing issues. And yes, so I'm going to stop there because I'm like going on a rant here. But yes, security
for the record, yes. I was indeed beating my head off the microphone, and I'm pretty sure that sound picked up.
He sure did. It was hilarious.
So we're going to talk a lot more later on about ops, but like, let's just make an ops observation, because ops person, right? Like, that's what I do. And a lot of people who listen are ops people. Mm-hmm. So like, let's talk about that for a second, because I think this is a really interesting, like, full industry case study that we can talk about. Security awareness is probably at an all-time high. There's a billion platforms that you can get that do security awareness. There's a billion different ways that you can do it. You can simulate phish all day. You can do all this stuff around awareness of employees to teach them that phishing is a threat. Yet year over year, phishing continues to be 60 to 90% of the cause of almost every breach. Year over year, we continue to beat our heads across this same problem. And I just did it again. But we're not seeing results. A billion platforms that try to do awareness of these risks. At this point, like, users are aware of them, right? Like, they know that phishing exists, but over and over, it still hits them. Masha, go ahead.
You mean because knowing's not half the battle?
Because knowing's not half the battle, right?
It's because a lot of these security awareness platforms use cookie cutter approaches, right? Don't click the link. Find the fish bait email.
I'm gonna steal another Josh Schwartz line here for a second. So sorry, Josh. I'm stealing your line this time. It's really hard to teach people not to click links when the entire internet is based around the concept of clicking links.
80%.
We've literally taught everyone to click links. Like, that's what you do on the internet. And now suddenly we're like, hey, don't click links. Oh my God, don't click links.
So what do we do?
But you've been conditioned forever to click links. That's how the entire internet works. Shout out to Josh Schwartz on that too.
Right. Back to your question about operation. Instead of looking at something as cookie cutter as don't click links, what is the kill chain action? What do red teamers see that is actually the problem in phishing? It's usually not clicking a link. It's usually something closer to like capturing credentials or giving up your password. So you need to make sure that the behavior you're trying to change, which is why awareness is not half the battle, is more to do with the things that are actually putting your company at risk.
Well, and it's funny how far behind we are even technologically with that. Now, I interview a lot of people, right? And I interview them for analyst roles where, like, I expect my analyst to like click links and understand what the fuck is going on. And I walk them through these scenarios and I'm like, all right, so like, there's a suspicious link. Like, do you click it? And most of them are like, no, I wouldn't do that. But you get some that'll be like in a sandbox safe environment. Cool. So we dissect all that. And then we get to like, okay, so like 300 people received a malicious email. What's the business impact? And they go, oh, that's bad. I'm like, but it's not. All right, let's keep going. 150 people click that link. What's the business impact? It's a credit harvester on the other end. Oh, that's bad. Like, we got to start resetting. But do we need to, like, what happened? What's the real impact to our business right now? And like, it's the same general concept, right? Like, if there's no business impact, that might not be the behavior that we need to change. If I just to put it in like ops terms, because ops is what I get. Like, if we don't have a business impact from the action, like, we would like to stop the first part of the action. That way the second and third parts can't happen. But I don't want to do that at a user level. I want to do that at a technology level.
Which makes
your energy and your employees' energy is very sacred, and there is not a lot of it. Why push it on things that don't need attention?
Exactly. So approach it from a perspective where you're looking for where is the actual point of impact. And from the actual point of impact, then you can, I think, from an ops perspective. And this goes to why Masha and I actually, like, our teams work together a lot. And we do this largely because my team can uniquely find business impact in a lot of good places. And then Masha's team can figure out how to convert that impact into behaviors. And then we can kind of go from there.
We do this because your team is sick and tired of getting our corpse comms called
Correct.
fish, and we need to train our employees on what to actually, report.
Yeah, and that's not a unique problem, right? Like, that's a global problem. That's happened at any place I've ever been in my life. So like, we work together to isolate these behaviors, and I want to talk way more later about ops. But first, like, we talk about security awareness and the issues that exist with security awareness, but like, what does it really take to pivot into this concept of looking at behavior? Go ahead, Allie.
So, and I definitely want Masha to jump in here. So I think we should all just like take a step back really quick, because we're talking about behaviors, but I feel like maybe not everyone really even knows what that really means.
Oh, good call.
I know that Masha has a good definition, so I want her to share that. And I just want us to like take a step back and like, let's understand things from like a little bit broader perspective, and then that will like help everyone understand like where we're going with this.
Oh, very good call. I'm sorry, my excitement is overriding my sense.
No pressure whatsoever. So if you think about, let's break it down, right? You have an action, which means that you are doing a thing. When that action becomes a habit, it means that you repeatedly do that thing automatically without thinking about it. So behaviors are those habits or actions that have some sort of contextual impact. So they have some sort of context to them. Does that make sense?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like any action that's, perceived at a specific moment in time, and it's likely in response to at least one, factor or stimulus or something there, right? So
perfect.
Does that make sense to at least the people we can see on this call?
Yes, it does. I got it.
Yeah. And I think too, like, just further backing up, so anything that humans interact with or are a part of is going to be complex, and it's going to be difficult because humans are complex and difficult. And within a human, like a sim, right? there's all these different like buckets of information that make us who we are. And it's anywhere from like our physical state and DNA, our mental cognition, our background experiences, our personalities, our values and beliefs, our motivations and drivers, habits, like Masha said, are just sort of like our natural reactions to things, our behaviors, and, feelings, emotions, right? Like, there's so much that goes into a meat popsicle and how it goes about the world. And behaviors is just one of those things that make up a person. And it's like, I think we just need to like back up and have a frame of reference. And that's why this is relatively complex, because, okay, behavioral engineering and, changing behaviors, influencing behaviors, well, that's a small part of the larger human here. And then you have multiple humans in an organization, right? And I think that's why we have all kind of struggled in the world with this, these human factors. But I just wanted to like kind of give us a frame of reference here for
that's fantastic.
The next discussion. Yeah.
Thank you.
Makes
and
sense. Yeah.
That raises a really good kind of pivot point to talk about a little bit, because a lot of things do go into making up a human.
Mm-hmm.
So if we dissect that a little bit, and Masha, to you talking about being able to quantify these things, where in the human can we quantify the ability to make that change in an impactful way? Like, what things are you looking for that kind of make up a human that can kind of, and she's making a face right now, that can kind of like
question. There are so many, to Allie's point, we're
but that's cool. But where do we focus, right?
Okay, my favorite, and if you haven't read the book Nudge by Thaler, you should, because it's amazing. I think he starts off every intro of all of his books with the only thing predictable about a human is that they're irrational, is that they're not predictable. So when you accept the fact that like you can't change how someone necessarily feels about things that aren't contextualized, you get into a different state of mind. And so your question is more around what can we measure in terms of behavior change?
Well, what do we focus on? Like, if all these things make up a human, like we're going to have little control over emotional response. We're going to have little control over some of the upbringing and like their past. But what parts of the human are we going to have? I don't want to say control over because that sounds bad, but like, where do we have our impact?
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. So a lot of what you're saying can actually be changed specifically around someone's values and beliefs. We use a whole bunch of different social science techniques like social proof, or like if you think that your best friend is into it, you're more likely to be into it, or passive competition, or non-passive competition, right? You want to be better than your peers. We feed into a lot of what naturally comes from a human in order to get what we actually need across.
I mean, I hear at least one aspect of gamification, which we can talk about later, because I realize that's not a complete solution, but it's an interesting
one. We can, there's choice architecture, there's different levels of communication. If you think about the fact that each human is separate in their learning paths and how they learn as well, like someone is visual versus auditory versus and needing to see words on a screen or videos, like this job is so fun and so challenging because you need to adhere to so many different people without necessarily having an answer up front. I call it security spaghetti, right?
Sure.
We throw spaghetti at a wall, we see what sticks, but we make sure that we measure every step of the way. So when we do see something that sticks, we double down and triple down on it and continue forward.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, if I can try to explain this in a very simplified manner, so fully understanding it's simplified as hell, because y'all are a lot smarter than me. We're essentially trying to change habit that has negative impact. Is that roughly accurate?
Or enable habit of positive impact.
Perfect. That's a good addition and clarification.
Yeah. And I love that, Sean, that you have said this so clearly, because this is another thing that I harp on. So it's so funny. There have been, research studies done. Some of my partners, like Dr. Matthew Canham, has just done this over at in University of Florida. And they literally have talked to people, users, who have clicked like 8 or 9 phishing emails. And when they're asked about, hey, do you remember this email? Do you remember this landing page? These people have no recollection, like zero. They're not trying to be sly or funny. Like,
no, I mean, I have no recollection of how much shit I click in a day. I'll be honest. Like, all I do is click all day
for dinner. Yeah, I don't remember. And so it goes to the point of like, people are just operating largely on autopilot, and they are operating at a habitual level. And so if we're trying to tackle, having people click less emails and less links, we have to tackle the habitual level, because that's where they're operating at. And this like perfect scenario training and like, I don't know, just simulations and stuff, like this is not helping, because it's at a different level, and we need to address the habitual level to really get to the behaviors for all intents and purposes. Yeah.
I want to harken on the impact side of that too, because, if we try to tackle the clicking of links, like I don't think we'll ever win. Right.
No,
if we try to tackle the impactful behavior, entering credentials,
but
you're
bringing up a good point. Why would we tackle the human behavior side of clicking when we can tackle that with a technology solution?
Sure.
Bring on a defensive tool that filters through your inbox and gets rid of half of that junk early on. That's also part of the job, right? The first question should always be, if we can change the technology to not have to even make people make a choice, what is that technology and what is that answer? And once that is gone through, then what behaviors do we change?
Yeah, what's left after that is a negative impact behavior, or that we can make a positive impact behavior? So
absolutely. And like, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, gosh, it gets me all going here. That's what I think so many organizations are struggling with is, their environments are really honestly set up to where they're not user friendly, and their systems and just like the tooling is not really set up so that a user has the easiest time doing their job. And I think that's a hard thing, that the technology is really not helping as well as it could.
So that's a really interesting piece, because I actually wanted to pivot into like strategies to do this. And I think one of them absolutely is user friendliness. Like if security isn't easy, people aren't going to do it. Right? Like the ease of use becomes a strategy to get the habitual behavior that you want. But, we can expand on that. Masha, feel free.
And ease of use is highly dependent on your audience, right? You can't think of your whole entire company as one audience. There are different people with different roles that interact with your company assets in different ways. And therefore you need to, make sure that you figure out what works best for them.
Now, here's a question I have.
Go ahead.
So could, like you said, understudy where you said ease of use in security makes people want to do it. But what about the flip side? Wouldn't ease of use make people want to abuse it as well too? Like say, oh, well, it's so easy that I could just become lazy and don't even worry about it. It's an afterthought. I could just do this later.
Let me ask it this way. Would you rather have less fish alerted to your SOC team or more?
I would like more.
Okay, then I would go with these.
I don't think that there is a good answer to that question.
And that's what I'm saying. This is a double-edged sword.
Let me rephrase. The way you answered it, I'm going to say more. Or the way you asked it, I will say more. Because you specified that they're fish. However, would I like less emails or more emails delivered for analysis? I think it ultimately depends on the quality of the thing that is being submitted for analysis. So I don't have a good answer for that because it depends.
That's the right answer. I agree 100%, but you tackle that problem with different ways, right? That's training, Correct. That's education, that's communication, that's even competition of who can find the right fish and get points for real fish versus non-real fish. In terms of ease of use, I 100% always as much as possible.
Yeah, I'm for ease of use because it's going to bring more, but because you've simplified the technology solution, right? And we covered this, we were talking about this, because you've made the technology solution so that you've gotten the behavior you want, which is people to submit things to you. Now you can address the behavior of the quality of submissions as the next step, right? Like if we're following down this kind of like pathway. And I actually really like laying this out like a pathway because I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to kind of laying this out thought pattern wise in a bit of a pathway, understanding that it's going to branch into 1,000 different directions. But still, like there's a pathway of like behavior 1, behavior 2, behavior 3. Well, we can fix behavior 1 with technology. We can fix behavior 2 with ease of use. Now we can start worrying about what we do about behavior 3, what comes after that.
So in the Drake voice, there's levels to this ish.
Right. So methodologies. Methodologies.
Yeah,
we've got ease of use. Masha, you touched briefly on gamification, which we can absolutely expand on. But like, what other methods or kind of practices can you put in place and like are good to kind of think about as you think about how to get good behaviors and remove bad ones?
My favorite are cascading communications. Is kind of starting at the very high level of all of your executives, getting their buy-in and making sure that they are your spokesmodels, your voices, because they're like your parents, your principal, your what they say goes. And so if they can cascade it down through their team meetings and then the next level team meetings, so on and so forth.
Wait. You mean to tell me that culture starts at the top? I never ever would have guessed that in a million years.
Yes.
Right. And where it doesn't work at the top, you start from the bottom and you nudge communication all the way through. And for all mostly good behaviors, but bad too, although we tend to be more carrot than stick at our organization.
So let's talk about that for a minute. Like, let's talk about the carrot stick concept a little bit, because there's a lot of places that will do like negative reinforcement for if you do the behavior that they don't want. I, as a parent, have never been fond of negative reinforcement. I have read enough stuff, not that I have a degree or anything, that I don't believe that negative reinforcement tends to work on human beings in any way, shape, or form. But I think like talking about like the prospect of negative reinforcement to do something becomes kind of a bit of an interesting topic that I'd like you both to weigh in on. Allie, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. Whew. It's great that we have touched on like this third area, culture, because I definitely wanted to talk about that. And, yeah, obviously, yes, it should be top down. But I think even, thinking about especially, American business culture. So I honestly, I think security culture, like that phrase is bullshit. There is really no such thing as like a separate entity that is security culture. There is one culture of the business, and your security is sort of like a byproduct of this culture.
Basically, everybody's going like preach right now.
I'm screaming
weave it in.
Now.
Yeah. And so when we talk about business culture as a whole, I think it's important to even be realistic. Like, no, hold up. Like, don't try to blame, the security culture isn't good. No, bitch. It's your entire business culture that's not good. It's the fact that you put profits over people. It's the fact that you would like to have people running at 300% when they're not really able to, and they are stressed out, and they don't have the time of day or the F's to give to be on the lookout for these little fish. It really comes from a larger picture of like, your business culture probably sucks. Don't try to blame this on something that is a result of that. Let's actually take a look in the mirror and fix what's really wrong here with the culture itself and why it's not conducive to having secure actions from your users. Okay.
And that's really interesting. And like, as somebody who's been doing this for a long time and somebody who consulted and went in during breaches and stuff, this kind of plays to the negative reinforcement thing. Like, users in our culture, in a lot of companies' cultures today, are afraid to admit that they did the negative action. They're afraid to say that they put in their credentials. They're afraid to admit that because they're worried about the repercussions from it. Facts. Because of the culture that exists at the company. And I agree 100%. Yes. That security is not a separate culture, but something that has to be part of your overall company culture. But I can tell you as an ops person, and we'll get to ops again still more later, it does me no good if a user is afraid to admit what they did, because that means I can't solve the problem. Right. Because I can't get all the details. But I mean, Masha, do you want to pick up from there?
I have like 6 different thoughts. I don't even know where to start at this point. Yes. I completely netedly agree with what Allie was saying in terms of thinking of the person instead of the company's profits as a culture. Specifically around, we've been doing a lot of anti-harassment work, mostly because we have audiences that are, or employees that are reporters and advertisers that get harassed on a regular basis. And when we started training these people on how to keep themselves safe on the internet, because we cared about them as humans, they were keeping our company safe as a default. Right. So think of the whole human and not necessarily the employee. At least that's one thing.
Yeah. And that goes a long way. And that's why I continue to be very against like negative, like retribution and negative action.
On that, right. The reason that it is more effective to go the positive reinforcement route is because by going negative, you're kind of putting your foot in your mouth. You're the person that needs to train these people on what to do. Why would they ever listen to you on the things that they need to do if you just went on and chat on everything that they did?
I also find you'll breed like roughly, and there's probably more, but like 2 rough kinds of people. You'll breed the people who are too afraid to tell you that they made the mistakes, so the problem gets way bigger than it needs to be. Mm-hmm. Or you'll breed the type of people like me who are like, oh no, screw you. Like, I'm not listening because I don't respond well to this. And I'm going to fight you at every step of the way.
The best part about positive reinforcement too is if you make it public, other people want it too.
Exactly. Like people are driven by positive reinforcement.
Wear the t-shirt you earned. Show it off. Make sure everybody knows that you did the good thing, so they want to do it too.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting concept. So if we roll back a little bit, because we talked about that a little bit. What other methodologies, what other approaches are there to this? We've covered a whole bunch of them. Any other ones that you want to share? I will take a couple seconds of silence as I know we've covered many of them. And trust me, there's 1,000 more, I guarantee it. Because I talked to both of these two individuals a lot. There are probably more than 1,000 other ones, but I think a lot of what has been shared so far has been actionable and good, right?
I want to double down on the idea of technology fixes. And it might not always be fixes. It might be pushing something to someone's endpoint, right? Like a password manager, for example. The second that it's already on their laptop, they're more likely to use it.
Yeah,
so thinking of, sorry, go ahead.
Let's dissect that for a minute, because that's really interesting. We talked about a scenario, right? And we talked about the scenario of phishing with specifically like the impact of what you want is creds. If you can move your culture towards a technology solution where you're using a password manager that saves the websites that you're logging into, suddenly fake login pages no longer become a thing for you.
We did that. The challenge was don't even know your own password.
Right? Because suddenly those things don't matter anymore.
Exactly. And if someone has a knife up to your throat and says, tell me your password, your response is, I don't know what it is, because you literally don't.
Yeah. You have fixed the technology solution of somebody inputting their password by changing the behavior of them ever having to input their password.
Exactly.
Like if it doesn't auto-populate, which is easier, by the way, for everybody. So you're hitting on ease of use here. If it doesn't auto-populate, then the thing isn't good. And that's an easy thing to train on and teach and let people know. And you're fixing a huge problem in a very simple technological way with limited user interaction and limited user need. Because ultimately at that point, the behavior that you need as we walk down this pipeline is, well, it's not don't click. It's not don't put in your password. It's not any of that. It's use a password manager and understand the benefits that gives you. There's your behavior. Changing that behavior breaks that entire kill chain.
And take it a step back also, right? In order to use a password manager to fill in your credentials, you need to have the password manager. You need to download it and be signed into it. So why don't I just push it to every single corporate device now that I have it so that they don't even have to download it, right? Think through the less steps that someone has to take to do something, the more likely they are to do it.
Ease of use, right?
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah, and I think too, like just to rehash on making sure that we as technologists truly take the time and effort to understand how our users are going about their day. How are they getting their job done? What tasks do they have to do, and how are they doing that? And I think that can really shed a lot of light on, for example, like lots of shadow IT, right? People are downloading crazy stuff and you're like, why are they doing that? Well, if you took the time to ask, maybe you'd find out that the way that they need to do this task, they can't do it with what you have for them. And if you had a different solution, then they wouldn't be downloading crazy things.
Right.
And it's just like, just take the time to look and ask and find out what do they really need and how can you compliment them.
So
another
interview story.
Yeah.
I got another interview story, and this is another thing that I find a lot in interviews. And this is going to speak, Allie, specifically to you talking about technologists overcomplicating everything. So when I interview people, I don't necessarily interview them looking solely for technical skills. Like I ask scenario-based questions and how people think through. And like oftentimes I have to tell people, like they'll say something. I'll be like, look, think about it in a much simpler way than that. Think about it in a much simpler way than that. Dumb it down even more. Think about it very simple. Because one of the things I find, like technologists look for technology. They don't think about humans very much. So like even from an attacker perspective, even when you're looking at a phishing email, there's a human element to that you can look at. You can look for things like sense of urgency. You can look for all different kinds of tells from a human perspective that technologists tend to be inherently kind of against that. I think they expect that you want some highly complex technical answer. And I'm like, no, I want a very human answer from you. Like we work with humans. We're defending against humans. I care about human stuff. Like the human part matters.
I love this example because we have a lot of people that come up to our team and ask for comms help, specifically with technology rollouts or whatnot, because they say, the human, help us rewrite this so that the next Scream test, people actually know what to do. And my favorite response is, and maybe it's because I literally am my grandmother's IT person, but teach your grandma, right? If she can understand it, then the rest of the employee base definitely can.
Right?
I'm loving these analogies tonight. Like I'm
right.
Oh my goodness.
So many people in tech focus so solely on tech and they don't focus on the human part. And I mean, BSD, dude, you're a professional red teamer. Like half of your job is the human aspect as much as the tech aspect, right?
All of my job, really. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
If you think about it, like I have to think like a human administrator. Okay, why did they?
You might even say that you need to behavioral engineer somebody into doing the things you want.
Look at that. Let's put it out there.
Here's why I love what you just said. And it's because, and I'm going to shamelessly plug our company, but when I was interviewing for a place to work, there were two companies in the whole entire industry that had some sort of behavioral engineering that sat on the same team as Red Team. The fact that we actually take their analytics, their kill chains, their finds in the company and equate them and effectively like make the fix to them based on the work that we do is insane. And that just didn't exist anywhere else.
I mean, I think behavioral engineering as a whole is still kind of new, but this is a really good pivot point.
Right.
Because I want to kind of pivot a little bit, not just on the behavioral engineering, but I want to talk about how that kind of fits with ops. Because like Masha, you and I work together a lot, like, and it's very like, ops observes something. We work with behavioral engineering to try to fix specific behaviors. And I would hope, and I don't want to speak for you, but like you have at least broadened my mind in a lot of ways, in a lot of positive ways. And I think that's been a good reason for continued partnership is I like to think we both challenge each other on how to think about this stuff from the on the ground operations perspective to the psychological perspective. But like,
Sir, understudy, did you just say working together?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Further.
That's also kind of a difficult thing, isn't it? But like, what I really want to impress, and I mean, Masha, feel free to weigh in here too. And Allie as well. Like if you have groups, I mean, be them security awareness that you want to make a pivot to behavioral engineering, be them behavioral engineering itself, be it you want to see this happen. It's so important for ops people, for anybody in ops to at least familiarize themselves with this topic. And if you have people in your organization who can help you implement, I'm lucky enough to have somebody like Masha, you can make really good partnerships because like behavioral engineering and like working with the users in the human angle mixes so well with the ops side and lets you do really incredible stuff that like, I don't think you could do otherwise.
And it's a two-way relationship, right? We couldn't do half of what we do without you. I wouldn't know of real fish hitting our company versus the things that people are reporting. I wouldn't be able to educate on the things that actually matter if it weren't for you guys.
So like one of the things that I really want to drive home is that importance of like, none of this is to be done in a bubble and none of security should be done in a bubble either. But like
synergy,
we have found through essentially trial at this point that ops and behavioral engineering marry really, really well. And we can have not just like we protected the company from this one thing, but like it can bring both parties into having real serious lasting effect on a business and the people who work for that business and protecting them. So and like, that's our job.
Can we name it purple?
I mean, we can name it. I like the color purple, man. We can name it purple.
It's too funny because we were arguing about this before the podcast started.
We weren't arguing. I said I admitted I was a dinosaur and I was wrong. We actually did a whole episode on this stuff, and I even then admitted that I was a dinosaur and I was wrong.
Look, Sean, I'm sorry. We're gonna make fetch happen. It's just gonna happen.
You get me some purple shirts, like I'm good. I'll wear purple shirts. I like
purple shirt with two arms saying "Bring it in."
Right. I mean, it's beyond just red and blue coming together though, because it's bringing people like Masha or like myself who have these different perspectives from
Right.
other backgrounds and other industries. It's bringing all these people in and saying, hey, you know a lot of stuff. Like, for example, my friend Ira Winkler just wrote a book and he references safety science because those people have been doing their jobs for a long time. And OMG, yes, a lot of the stuff that they have already figured out, we should probably consider.
You mean it's accepting that not every problem is a technological one that has to be solved by a highly technology-focused person?
Or dare I say,
I never would have thought.
Not having to reinvent the wheel and actually looking at research and things that have happened in the past that could be applicable and effective.
Now you're talking crazy. I'm sorry. If we didn't invent it in InfoSec, it obviously isn't worth it and it doesn't count. Now you're just talking crazy.
The beauty of behavioral engineering is that it has aspects of psychology, of economics, of design, of so many different things that come together in order to make effective solutions to the biggest problems.
You know, there was a whole study not that long ago, and I think I talked about it on here about, I want to say it was CVSS scores, but if I'm wrong, somebody please tell me I'm wrong, where somebody actually looked at like the math that they use to make CVSS scores, which is like your vulnerability score, right? And was like, there is literally no sense to this. They literally mean nothing. And like so many actual formulas could have been used to bring meaning to this. And they just had to invent one that was worthless. And I thought it was really, really interesting. And it was a really interesting read. And it's that show of like, we really should be looking outside of just what we do, because there's a lot of other good stuff that's been done in the world long before we existed. That becomes really interesting.
Agreed.
Yeah, and again, like we're at that point now where we can no longer manage just by ourselves. Like we are so far past only keeping this in-house, and like it is the time now to work with other people. Absolutely.
All right. Go ahead, BSD.
Oh, and I was about to say this too. Tonight I have learned a ton. And I also want to say, y'all need to write a manual or book, something, and definitely get this out here more, because again, you know, if you don't really hear about it, you know, behavioral engineering and like how it helps bring communities together. I'm just going to say we're all in this together. It's a community. Then, you know, the more people are going to want to learn. I know I really enjoyed it tonight. I really like.
Well, we're not done yet, man.
I know we're not, but I just, I'm in my moment here. This is my soapbox.
I'm just saying, are you ending the show early again? Because you've done that before.
Not. Of course not. I don't want this to end. This is good stuff here. We can't have this. But what I'm saying, I'm in my soapbox moment. I'm loving this, and it's got my wheels turning on. Okay, how can I take behavioral engineering and apply it even further to what I do as a red teamer as well too. So my wheels are turning. That's all I'm saying.
Nice.
I love it. And like, I mean, even, gosh, I can't remember if it was it DerbyCon? I think this is when I heard it, but you know, even like Dave Kennedy is literally saying, we need to be focusing on behavior. This is the next thing. And he's largely speaking from a, you know, red perspective, but also, you know, it really applies to everything. Yeah. And like, yes, like we need to be focusing on behavior, and that for sure is going to help y'all who are red teaming over there.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, it's like, that's it.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, technologically, the attack surface has shrunk significantly. There's less attack surface around the perimeter within individual devices.
Agreed.
The attack surface has come way the hell down since like the concept of an attack surface being a thing. The attack surface that hasn't come way the hell down is people.
Behavior.
But because we've spent a lot of time focusing on this attack surface as the technological attack surface. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because there used to be a really big one.
Right.
But that's gotten so small now that I do think we need to pivot, and we need to focus on the attack surface of the person.
So here's a PSA to those of you in management and leadership. If you have the ability to bring in a team like this, do so. And be open to different backgrounds, because this is not what I thought I was ever going to be doing. And I'm so happy to be here and actually do it.
Yeah, it's not like you can get a real degree in a lot of this stuff in
Not
a way
really.
that, like, exactly.
Yeah, it's like part organizational psychology, part UX design, part again economic theory, part marketing, part sales, part whatever you want. So as long as you're open to people who are curious and want to find solutions, that's all you should be looking for.
And if you don't have a team like this, and it's something that you are resonating with and are really interested in, what's to stop you from starting to employ some of this methodology within your organization now? Like, that's one of the reasons why we do this, right?
Agreed.
So, most important question. What important questions haven't I asked yet? Like, what are we missing? What haven't we talked about yet?
I don't know. We have talked about quite a bit. I don't know. Maybe there's like some more type of like next steps or like takeaways that we could try to, list off. Because it has been a lot of like soapboxing, ranting, and you want to help people here. No, I'm just speaking from my own side here.
Me too. I had my little soapbox moment just a few minutes ago. So yeah.
Yeah, I think okay. So we've talked about behaviors and habits, and this is where we need to focus. We've talked about user-friendly design and your environment and your technology and your tooling. We've talked about culture and how that needs to be security friendly. I think also just, talking about like the consistency that needs to be shown, and the patience and the time that this all really takes. If you guys really want to change behaviors, it is a long haul project. There is no quick fix. It is.
Well, fuck it. I give up then.
But you know what? That's usually how a lot of folks think.
Well, that's a great question. And Allie, I'd love to ask it of you. How do you measure and pivot effectively over time? I guess is what you're getting to.
I mean, to be honest, I think we're all kind of figuring that out. I think that there's ways to measure parts of behavior, and you got to break it down like super granularly, and you have to really have a laser focus on what exactly are you trying to change, because it's got to be like, I think from like a psychological perspective, like true academia, it is one thing at a time, like one baby step at a time. And you have got to really just dedicate to figuring out what are those small changes that you want to build up into the larger change. And
almost like you would quantify your biggest business risk and then start to address it in that way.
Yeah. And then
which is, I think, talking nonsense.
And then create behavioral goals around that and make sure that those goals are measurable and the measurements go somewhere, and you actually analyze those measurements and see what changes over time.
Exactly. I think that's all nonsense.
What?
But I do think that we're all, and I look at it this way too, and this is an analogy I look at it, we're all smaller streams of water. And you know how water is always constantly rushing no matter what's in its way. And again, if water runs on something long enough, it begins to wear it down. And I think like far as like behavioral engineering and like the technological aspect and, everybody coming together in small pockets and actually continuing, like you said, this is no quick fix. This is a project that will continue on forever, even after we're here.
I'm not going to be corny, but I definitely have the saying written up on my wall in my bedroom that says, "A river is not formed with force; it's formed with consistency."
Ooh,
so yes,
so,
I'm going to be honest though. Here's what I'm excited about.
What's that?
We're getting the opportunity to interview two people that I strongly believe are going to be like the leading people in this field within a couple of years.
Of
at least
course.
in the InfoSec way. Like, it's cool to like, I get to work with them and talk to them before they were super cool.
Oh, well,
Not that you're not super cool already, because you're already super cool. There's just not enough people who know it yet.
That's a great topic to touch on. I really appreciate that because I suffer from imposter syndrome like no other on a regular basis. The hard part about being in this line of business where honestly a career path is not drawn out. I don't know what's higher for me other than paving my own way to whatever the chief behavior officer is going to happen. I'm going to make fetch happen. Watch it happen. However, the imposter syndrome that comes with not knowing and not having a direct path is really difficult. And
we talked a lot. Well, we talked a lot with Kim Zetter when we had her on about the concept of being a non-tech person in InfoSec and how difficult that can be and how those individuals can be shunned. I, for one, am more than happy to admit that, like, I love non-tech people who have new ideas and fresh thoughts. And I love talking to people that I really like. Honestly, I'm not saying that like just to say it. I honestly think the two of you are going to be like leading this field before long. I really do. Like, you're both brilliant people.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. That really means a lot. And I would say the same sentiments about at times feeling the imposter syndrome effect. And I volunteer for the Blue Team Village at DEF CON, and we have a great mentor-mentee program. And that's actually one of the big goals for my mentees, to help them manage their imposter syndrome. And the one thing I'll just really quickly touch on is that I think what has helped me and what seems to be helping my mentee is to kind of think of imposter syndrome as that is a lack of self-appreciation. That's what imposter syndrome is. And I think for all of us here and for many, many, many of us in the community, we are such an empathetic group of people who do care and who do overly appreciate each other. And so it's like so funny when it comes to our own selves, we have no appreciation. Like, what is that? What is that? So just really quick little banter on that. But no, I mean, I really appreciate you saying that, understudy and BS Bandit, like, it's tough. And I think for me as not a technologist, I would say the one thing, like if I could advise people who are thinking about coming into this field with their other backgrounds, the thing that I did, and I stick to it 100%. When I found out about security as an industry, which I know is like crazy, but I didn't really know that existed for many years until several years ago. And when I found out it was a thing, first of all, I was completely enthralled, but I decided to make the conscious, real effort to understand the history, to understand the people, to appreciate the problems that you have faced, the problems that you're facing, the problems that you will face tomorrow. And I think taking the time to truly understand these group of people who work so hard that make the world turn around, like taking the time to really appreciate and not just jump in with like your immediate ideas and criticisms, because you don't know what these people have been through, right? You don't know the history of how all of this came to be. And I think that's the one thing that I would advise like anyone who's interested in joining this industry is, dear God, please take the time, talk with people, do some research, fucking appreciate the people who you are trying to work with.
Especially this industry. Yes. And I mean, all industries, but this industry has a tendency to draw obsessives and high functioning addicts and a bunch of different really troublesome like diseases. Like we draw in those people because of who we are. And like, there's a lot of studies on that. Right. And it's so nice that like mental health is at the forefront of a lot of people's mind right now. And we have like Hacker Mental Health and we have all these organizations that help with that because we draw in. Yes. I almost look at InfoSec like how I looked at like punk when I was a kid. Like it's the place for all the outcasts, right? And like it feels like that. Like we're a snarky,
The island of
Yeah.
misfit toys.
Yeah, we're a snarky little band of people who have a bunch of fucking problems, but like still want to change the world.
Yeah.
Which is why throughout my entirety of time in this industry, I've still kind of like considered myself like this so punk rock, and like I'm still so punk rock. Like it's cool.
The flip point of that, though, is that I challenge the industry and understudy, not to put you on blast, but since we're
go ahead.
putting out all of our grievances,
Bring it out.
Stop using the words technical and non-technical. The word,
no, that's fair.
The word technical itself comes from Greek. I think it's techno, technically, and it means art or skill. Right? Everything technical requires both art and skill, and it requires a skill in your art, whatever that art may be. So a lot of our imposter syndrome comes from hearing that we're non-technical.
You know what?
That's
that is
true.
an incredibly fair blast, because I have a big problem with the word hacker not being used the way I define the word hacker. And I'm going to make a conscious effort to remember that separation.
Thank you.
So I appreciate that, because I will make a conscious effort to not do that.
Thank you.
Because I usually do it like from an explanation perspective as we're talking about challenges, but I'm going to make a conscious effort not to do that, because that's a really good point.
Because labels suck.
Yeah,
they do. Because you gotta look at it like I never got into I just wanted to be a person that just enjoyed finding something that he enjoyed doing. It just so happened to be working on computers. That's it. Not, I want to get into the security industry. I wanted to it didn't even have a name when I first started. It was just.
So you know exactly what we're dealing with.
Right. It was just, yeah.
Understudy, I think you're muted.
You're muted, dude. You're muted.
All right. So with that said, I'm going to share one of my favorite quotes of all time.
All right.
You can hear me now, right? Yeah. Okay, cool.
I
looked. I had to move it over. Like I had to move one screen over top of the other screen. So it's like Simon, this quote from Simon Pegg is one of my favorite quotes. And I think this actually ties into this really well. Being a geek is all about being honest about what you enjoy and not being afraid to demonstrate that affection. It means never having to play it cool about how much you like something. It's basically a license to proudly emote on a somewhat childish level rather than behave like a supposed adult. Being a geek is extremely liberating.
Oh
and like, God. We're all geeks.
Love it.
Did this guy just describe my lifestyle?
Right? I'm just saying. Like, we are all geeks. That quote has stuck with me since I read it, and I can't tell you how long ago I read it, but it has been like in my mind forever. Yeah. And I love it.
Love it.
All right. So all that being said, we have a tradition at this show where anybody who comes provides a detection. And tonight you might get a 2-for-1 special, which is awesome. Basically, a detection just means what's something that somebody can take back to their organization tomorrow and do something with. So what piece of advice, what thing can they take back and implement in their organization in a meaningful way? So who would like to go first? All right, Allie, go ahead.
Okay, so what's the one thing? It's easier said than done, which is everything in this entire podcast episode. I think the one thing that I wish everyone could take back and do tomorrow, Friday, would be to just connect with one of your coworkers on a human level and like just say hi and try to talk to them and establish like a relationship. And I think so much of what we're trying to do with changing behavior, with, looking at our designs, with changing cultures, like it just starts on a person-to-person basis.
It's
it's
almost
really
like
cheesy, but
no, because it's almost like having a relationship with someone will make them more willing to help you in the ways that you need them to help you.
Yeah. Exactly. It's pretty crazy.
I still think you're talking crazy.
It's funny. I was
Masha?
listening to Allie so intently that I wasn't coming up with my own answer in my head, and I feel at a loss now. If I could tell you to do one thing other than the human to human interaction, which Allie is 100% correct on, because it does all start at that level, is to look at what already exists in your corporate environment, specifically if you're in corporate, because a lot of the things are done for you. Don't reinvent the wheel, right? If you have an HR and health department that already does some sort of incentivization for good health or finishing training, piggyback off of what they do. If there are tools out in the universe that your marketing or sales team is using, see if you can use them too. You don't have to do the different thing and be different. So live off the land, the way that Josh Schwartz phrases it.
Nice. Any parting comments from either of you? Masha, another book recommendation, maybe? I know you have a ton.
As I look all through my Nudge is the best one by far.
Agreed.
So read Nudge.
Read Nudge, and either Misbehaving or Thinking Fast and Slow are also great ones.
Do you have a link you could post?
We'll put a link in the description to that book.
Yeah.
We will put a link in the description to Nudge.
Oh, wait, I take back everything that I just said. The best thing that I can offer you to do is either read or listen to the audiobook called Talking to Strangers. The audiobook is literally the coolest thing that I've ever listened to in my whole entire life. The author narrates it, and he pulls in different audio snippets from real things. So like when he talks about a trial, he'll pull in the trial snippets, and it's fascinating. Like I thought I was watching a movie, even though I wasn't actually looking at anything. And it's great.
Nice. So you got 3 for the price of 1 tonight. Fun story. So I'll go back to Kim Zetter. When we had Kim Zetter on, we were talking about her book, her Stuxnet book. And I was like, yeah, I didn't read it. Yeah, so I ended up ordering it on Amazon before the end of the podcast to be like, yeah, so I now ordered your book. Because I felt bad that we had an author on and I wasn't familiar with their work.
Well, understudy, when Allie and I co-write a book, you best believe that you'll get the first copy.
As long as you both sign it. Because it's going to be worth something someday, I'm sure.
We need the autographs here.
BSD, before I take us out, closing comments?
I just want to say once again, I really enjoyed myself tonight. Not only did I enjoy myself, I actually really learned a lot tonight. And going forward, I have my wheels turning. So going to be doing some refining on my end as well. And that's why I asked about the link to the book, because I truly believe in expanding on knowledge in general. And you can't do that in a bubble. So I'm just glad y'all came on tonight. I'm super excited. Those are my closing remarks.
I mean, the same thing. Like, you two have been fantastic. I've been excited about this episode for a while. It lived up to every expectation that I was hoping it would have and more.
Yes.
I think there was wonderful information. I hope people get a lot out of it. If we ruffled any feathers, I'm not really sorry about that.
Neither am I.
Because I genuinely, and like I say this a bit because we have had a lot of really good episodes, but this is another one of those ones that's going to go down as one of my favorites, solely based on the quality of information that I think exists in this episode and the different types of information that we talked about, which I think is so freaking cool. Last thing for both of you before I sign off, how can people find you?
This is Allie. I'm Hey Allie Hansen on Twitter.
We'll also link in the show descriptions.
Yeah, Twitter or LinkedIn for me as well would probably be the easiest.
Cool. We'll link in the show descriptions so people can find you. With that being said, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all so much. I feel humbled now. Like, Allie, it was great to share the mic with you, and thank you all for doing this, for listening to us.
Right. Thank you both for coming on.
Yes.
And with that, go forth and find badness.